From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
At the legislature today, 2 different committee meetings, 2 issues, different perspectives. We'll explain in this half hour. Private charitable organizations and nonprofit agencies could be enlisted to help ease jail overcrowding in the state. And a special report tonight on truancy. Some students tell us their own stories on the legislature today. Good evening, I'm Beth Voorhees. Many rural areas of our state still do not have broadband telecommunication service. It's a vital link for internet and cell phones. The legislature has worked for years to expand the service into sparsely populated areas, but has found little help from private telecommunications companies which don't want to risk the investment for very little return. Today, the Senate Economic Development Committee passed a bill to allow the West Virginia Infrastructure and Jobs Development Council to provide state seed money in the way of bonds to companies that can expand broadband service. But not without heated protest by Senator Doug Facemeyer of Braxton County. The Infrastructure Jobs Development Council is a funding clearinghouse for water and wastewater projects, bringing clean water and sewer lines to rural areas. Senate Bill 635 would require the council to take on broadband expansion as well. But Facemeyer was suspicious of who would get the state's money and how the state would get its money back.
I want these people to have broadband, and I want them to have all these things. But it should not be the responsibility of the working people of this state who their tax dollars goes to put these people in business and let them make enormous profits over that. Look at the telephone company. Practically no little community in West Virginia does not have telephone service. The phone company was able to run miles of cables and all like that to provide that, not off the backs of the working people. And I think it is our responsibility here to make sure that we know how we're going to get paid back for this money. I have no problem in helping these people get started. But no one wants to tell me how that the taxpayer gets his money back. And that's the part that concerns me about this. And you know, working folks is having it tough right now. And we're going to set all this stuff up so that these companies can take it over and make a lot of money, and I just take issue to that. And as I've read through this stuff, what little bit I can, I see no mechanism in place to how they're going to pay it back. And on any business plan, the framework should be how you get your money back. But as I understand that, this broadband that we're put in is, after it's all put in, it's going to be ran by private companies, right?
Yes.
And these private companies are doing this for a profit, right?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. There's my point.
But the beneficial.
I'd like to know how these private companies are going to pay us back our money for putting them in business. I just think that's just
through the revenues they charge to the customer that receives the service.
So you think we're going to make money by doing this?
No, I didn't say that.
Huh?
I didn't say you're going to make money, but you're going to provide a service that doesn't exist to those customers today.
At a lower cost than what?
At a lower cost than it would be if it was all 100% private money.
Private money could do it. That's exactly right.
Well, you know, guys, I don't believe that for 1 minute. We're in a capitalist society. Let's put that out there and let these boys do it for themselves. Instead of just having one provider, let's have 3 or 4, and the competition between them will put that down.
Senator Art Kirkendall of Logan County reminded his colleague that rural areas like his are still desperate for economic development assistance.
You travel 119 from Logan to Charleston, and you do it yourself. You can't use a cell phone. It's one of the most traveled roads probably in the Appalachian region as far as trucking and commerce, and you can't use a telephone. So I'm sitting here looking at a bill to be supportive, but I'd like for people to take into account, we got to look at all of West Virginia. You know, it's easy to take the cream off the top and spend money where revenue streams are prevalent. But at some point in time, we're going to have to look at legislation that allows these rural areas not to become 10 or 15 years antiquated behind everybody else, and give these people an opportunity to make application and get this proper economic development infrastructure.
Senate Bill 635 passed the Economic Development Committee, but it has to move on to the Government Organization and Finance Committees. Then it was on to Senate Bill 653, another economic development effort to fund venture capital investment for innovation-driven businesses in science and technology. Seeing how Senator Facemeyer reacted to the previous bill about public investment in private enterprise, Senator Brooks McCabe seemingly tried to soothe his colleagues' fears.
I think we have an opportunity to restart this program in a way that could work. We are spending some money, not enough money, on research and development. The commercialization of emerging technologies, particularly as it relates to coal and natural gas, I think is the future of West Virginia. We've got our universities trying to focus on that area. They come up with an idea, they get a patent. How do you commercialize it? That commercialization process will take probably angel capital investment and venture capital. We're not able to play in that game in a competitive manner with the states around us. So as we put those new technologies out there, unless we start paying attention to venture capital, we will lose more than we keep, because the venture capital companies that do come forward and fund it, as a matter of course, almost always require that investment to be situated close to the funding source, which means it will move across the West Virginia-Pennsylvania line in most cases. So from my perspective, this is a modest attempt to reinvigorate the venture capital business in the state. It puts in regular reporting, it puts in a revolving fund, it puts in the requirement that at least 40% of the profits have to come back to the revolving fund, and furthermore, it requires the disclosure of the private investors. All of these are new things to try to show, to create transparency, but to put in place a business model where the state gets its money back. And I would have to say, the senator from Braxton, that in many ways you are responsible for a lot of what's in here, because people are listening to your comments over the last couple of years. This has been rewritten in a way to address as many of them as we were able to understand. So I would support this legislation and hope that this committee passes it.
And the committee did, without protest or debate. Senate Bill 635 now heads to the Senate Government Organization Committee. And as it happened, the same two issues were taken up today by the House Finance Committee: broadband access and emerging technologies. Same issues, with a little different take on the matters. Adam Cavalier reports.
In a committee where many of the members use iPads to view bills, House Bill 4613 will enable West Virginia to get broadband internet access further throughout the state through what's called Broadband Middle Mile. House Finance Vice Chair Tom Campbell says it's a logical next step.
You can see the iPads that the members, it's been amazing some of the members have taken to using the iPads here today, so or in the House this year. So you can see even in the House, and just it's the way of life. I mean, the young people today are growing up with, I've got a BlackBerry, but they have the iPads and everything that they're dealing with. So they're obviously accessing, buying things on the internet. We all are.
Broadband Middle Mile is the segment of a network between a network operator and the lines that provide service to customers. House Finance Counsel Mark McOwen says the Middle Mile will be treated similarly to other utilities.
It creates a mechanism that mirrors the mechanism in statute today for the funding and grant making to these water and sewage facility projects. It sets up a separate structure for doing the same thing for what's known as broadband middle mile infrastructure projects. It doesn't provide funding for these projects. It merely sets up the same mechanism.
The description, just to take it one step further, it's think of, we're building, this will provide the framework to build additional interstates. And then the end mile companies can come off that interstate with your exits and your roads into towns and all that. And that's kind of what that middle mile is, in my vision, is the interstates, and this gives us a structure to start doing that in a bigger way.
The bill passed, but not unanimously. House Minority Whip Mitch Carmichael voiced opposition because private companies like Frontier Communications had already invested hundreds of millions of dollars to do what the state is attempting to do.
I really was hoping that we would get to the point where we say, let's at least examine areas where broadband middle mile is already deployed, and then don't waste our money overbuilding that, because we do have limited resources, right? And if we put that money in areas where we already have it and enable a chilling effect on private investment, really, because all of a sudden you're saying, as a private company, do you really want to invest in an area where the state's going to come in and compete with you?
While the Middle Mile Broadband Bill is designed to open up access to the internet, a bill from Kanawha County Democrat Doug Scaff may open up West Virginia to internet companies. House Bill 4547 creates tax breaks for companies that are creating emerging technologies. Scaff says the bill could have many applications.
Anything that's new and innovative that doesn't exist currently. For example, with development of the Marcellus Shale, if there was a new technology that were to exist to ship the out product of the Marcellus in a new way, this could be an out product of this bill. As for technology, something that exists from Google, and if there was an outtake of Google or something on the internet, this would be allowed under this provision.
Innovative business technology is defined, and it includes emerging technologies and other business technologies that primarily use state-of-the-art methodologies, practices, or techniques to manufacture, produce, or provide its primary goods or services, and do not include technology that was in commercial use anywhere in the United States prior to July 1st, 2012. The tax credit portions of the bill are inapplicable for any qualified investment placed in service or use after December 31st of 2020.
The House Finance Committee considered 6 bills this morning, largely because crossover day looms Wednesday. Delegates would need to suspend constitutional rules to read the bill 3 times if they want to consider anything new next week. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Adam Cavalier in Charleston.
House Bill 4530 passed unanimously today. The bill allows electric utilities in West Virginia to recoup expenses from the rising price of coal. Finance Committee Chairman Delegate Harry Keith White says the bill is an alternative to traditional financing for utility companies.
The bill would give the Public Service Commission, the PSC, authority to consider an application from an electric utility for the sale of bonds in a limited circumstance. If approved, the electric utility would be permitted to have the bonds sold, and the proceeds from the sale would only be permitted to be used to pay specific expenses previously incurred for the purchase of coal by the electric utility.
House Bill 4530 will now be considered by the Senate. Without the ability to sell bonds, utility companies say they would likely raise consumer rates by 30 to 40%. Legislation permitting nonprofit agencies to work directly with work release inmates was among those bills passing the state Senate today. Bob Brunner has details.
The measure is designed to help reduce prison costs by permitting nonprofit and charitable groups to house work release inmates. The idea is to both reduce the cost of supervising the inmate and giving an opportunity to transition back to society. One of the measure's sponsors is Kanawha County Senator Dan Foster.
Yes, one of the issues with our jail overcrowding problem is the fact that too many prisoners do not have a good plan when they leave the Departments of Corrections, and transitional housing is a huge issue. It's been brought forward by the military affairs and public service folks as a problem, and this is an attempt to address that by allowing contracts between nonprofits and the state to help to provide this housing so that these folks have some place to go that'll be safe and will enable them to begin their reentry into the system in a way that will hopefully decrease the recidivism rate.
A recent national survey indicates West Virginia spends more per capita than any other state on dealing with its prison inmates. Measures like this are designed to help reduce those costs. One bill now on its way to the governor creates a new authority to oversee the maintenance and renovation of the Art Deco Prince Rail Station in New River Gorge. Fayette County Senator Bill Laird says it will be a key gateway for tens of thousands of Boy Scouts arriving beginning next year.
I think it's a very good day. We've successfully passed this bill in the House and Senate now, on the way to the governor, and we're really excited about the prospects of making some upgrades and improvements in a train station that I think is a real icon in terms of railroad history in West Virginia.
Just before the session, the Transportation Committee approved legislation exempting small farm use vehicles from the vehicle tax, which was imposed when laws were changed 2 years ago. The committee chair is Senator Bob Beach.
Pieces of legislation have been passed, little pieces of legislation, and these little farm vehicles just got caught up in the shuffle, and we're trying to weed it out and clean it up and get it back to what it was before.
At the close of the week, the Senate passed a resolution honoring longtime Senator and former Senate President Lloyd Jackson of Lincoln County, who died last fall. Jackson's son, himself a former leader in the Senate, and his family were on hand for the presentation. Mingo County Senator Truman Chafin offered a remembrance.
But if you'll take a look at the Jackson family back here in the rear of the chamber, I think that's a real testament to the former President of the Senate, Lloyd's daddy. And he was kind of I didn't know him, but I just knew him but after I got here, but I heard so many people speak so highly of your dad, Lloyd. They said he was just like a country gentleman, and he reminded me of my namesake, Harry Truman. People would say that he always worked hard, he always did his best, never got too big for his britches, trusted in God, and he never forgot an old friend.
There are 14 bills at passage stage in the Senate Monday, including 2 dealing with child erotica. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Bob Brenner in Charleston.
The state Supreme Court asked the legislature to consider measures regarding truancy. House Bill 4309 and Senate Bill 464 would declare habitually absent students to be neglected children. Parents could then be charged and held accountable. Both bills were referred to the Education Committees on January 26 and have not moved since then. Lawmakers are reportedly interested in studying the issue for a year. However, Jessica Lilly reports several counties across the state have already begun to address the problem.
Pikeview High School junior Darren Harmon says he doesn't have a problem with attendance, but his situation is unique, and he says that making it to school is not always easy.
My mom, she just, when I told you I moved with her, she just got out of prison. She went back, and, that's like kind of a little rough, because she was in there for a long time, like 7 years. Then I just got her back, and now she goes back. So, when that happened, I didn't want to really come to school.
But he does it anyway.
It's just different, you go home and you're always used to someone asking you how your day was, fix your stuff, wash your clothes and stuff, and now, you're like pretty much you got to do it. So it's like harder on me because like I try to do my schoolwork and then I got to dishes, food, it's a little difficult.
Last year, students in West Virginia were allowed 10 unexcused absences, but this year state policy only allows for 5.
I think it's a little harsh, honestly. Some kids have problems at home, as we've heard, and sometimes they do go out of school, and it's for good reasons. But only having 5 days is a little rough. I mean, I was out 10 days for sickness, like the 10th grade year, and that's excusable.
Like so many truant students, Bailey was dealing with much bigger issues. At the beginning of his freshman year, his father died.
My earlier days in high school, stuff was kind of rough. I didn't like going to school. I mean, it's like I wasn't learning as much as I could have. I really couldn't focus. And I got older and I matured more, and then started to calm down. I was able to focus on my schoolwork. And this year, it's just been a breeze being a senior.
Last year, more than half of Pikeview's nearly 700 students missed more than 5 days of school. That's more than the county's average. But Ben DeCibio, principal for more than 10 years, says he saw results even before Mercer County's new program was implemented.
Well, I think we've seen a big change already. I think that when these cases are set to be heard, which is very soon, and the judge comes down hard on a few of them. It'll just take a few to get everybody's eyes open to that the courts do mean business, and that truancy is a major contributor to drugs and imprisonment and things of our young people.
The county hired a truancy probation officer who's expected to help keep track of attendance. The program is meant to uncover core issues in the home and provide services for help. During the last school year, nearly half of Mercer County students were truant 5 or more days.
And the problem extends further than the hallways here in Mercer County. Justice Robin Jean Davis with the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals says it's a statewide issue.
Davis held a series of events throughout the state this past summer. The goal was to encourage individual counties to address their unique truancy issues.
No matter what the situation, the truancy habit can lead to dropouts before graduation. And that is the beginning of a lifetime of trouble that can include unemployment, drug dependency, crime, and worst of all, incarceration.
Justice Davis points out in West Virginia, 8 out of 10 people in jail or prison were truants.
Our jails and prisons in West Virginia are overflowing. We cannot afford to wait another minute to address this problem or to allow another West Virginia child's life to be lost.
Circuit Court judges in Mercer County held the first round of truancy hearings last month. The parents were asked to appear in the case of an elementary student missing 12 or more days.
I hope that the message is the right message is sent to the parents, so that they do know that the place for their children to be is at school. They're safe at school. They will learn at school. They'll learn the right things at school and grow up to be productive citizens.
Other counties, such as Putnam, Taylor, and Barber, have also created a truancy policy. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Jessica Lilly in Athens.
In a moment, a preview of a very special report coming up on Monday. First, here's a look at some of the bills up for passage in the House next week. Among the bills up for passage in the House on Monday, House Bill 2278, allowing government records to be archived electronically. House Bill 4236, Governor Tomlin's bill to phase in a new evaluation process for professional personnel and institute a comprehensive teacher mentoring system in West Virginia. House Bill 4322, to add coyote and fox to the list of species in which any color of artificial light is permitted for hunting at night. House Bill 4424, to make a pilot project establishing emergency mental hygiene procedures permanent. The bill adds the word addiction to the code regarding mental hygiene procedures. House Bill 4486, to require certain information pertaining to liability coverage be disclosed to the claimant or his or her attorney within 30 days of a written request. House Bill 4068, that each antique motor vehicle and classic motor vehicle be valued at $1,000 for tax valuations. House Bill 4281, to increase the supplemental payments to members of the West Virginia State Police. House Bill 4392, at the request of the Supreme Court of Appeals Administrative Office. The purpose of the bill is to provide that all magistrates, magistrate assistants, magistrate court clerks, and deputy clerks be paid equally. House Bill 4475, to establish incentives to attract and retain young talent to the state. The bill establishes a modification reducing federal adjusted gross income for recent graduates of higher education institutions. And House Bill 4648, to authorize the Supreme Court of Appeals to utilize current judicial officers and resources to implement a domestic violence court pilot project. Sunday marks the 40th anniversary of the Buffalo Creek disaster. On Monday, a special report looking back at the tragedy. Here's a preview.
When you look at the devastation that was once a rural community, it is hard to imagine that there were 500 homes washed away in what appears to be now an endless mudflat. It's hard to imagine that a wall of cold, slurry water rampaged down this hollow in a matter of minutes on a Saturday morning. A late winter warm spell thawed the snowpack. Then came 2 days of heavy rains. 2 days before the dam burst, roads were closed due to high water in the area, and still the rains came. Then that slag dam that impounded the coal waste at the top of the hollow just came apart. Did anyone think it would ever happen? A survivor was asked that 2 days after the disaster.
I've been thinking that for years, ever since they backed that water up in there. They backed it up there with slate, and I figured if it ever got up far enough to come over the top of it, just the least bit of it, I'd just keep eating down and went on out.
Your family got out all right?
I don't know, I just didn't have enough get up about me to move on out of the hall.
Our special guest Monday night will be our Senate reporter Bob Brunner, who covered the Buffalo Creek disaster as a young reporter for a Charleston television station. I'm Beth Voorhees. Thanks for joining us. Good night.